Hey everybody out there, this is Seto, and today guys, I'm going to talk about something that many of you guys have asked me before, and that is number one, Seto, my man, how many decks do you play in real life? Really? And number two, what decks do I play competitively? Now there's a couple things I would like you to please keep in mind when watching this video. Number one, I've been playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Since the beginning pretty much. I started playing when Metal Raiders came out, and between Metal Raiders, I would say, and Magic Ruler. Magic Ruler, before it got changed to Spell Ruler, before there was that controversy between Magic and Yu-Gi-Oh!, yada yada yada. All my old school players know about that. But that's when I started playing, between Metal Raiders and Magic Rulers. That's when I got into the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! I did take a break, though, between, I guess you could say, late 2007 till about late 2009, pretty much my sophomore, junior, and senior year in high school. The main reason was, number one, nobody was playing Yu-Gi-Oh! In high school, and number two, there was a lot of distractions, such as girls, dating, sports, trying to get into college. There was a bunch of different things that were distracting me at the time, and it wasn't until I got to college, pretty much around, I'd say Extreme Victory maybe, Storm of Ragnarok, somewhere around in there, I started playing the game again because my friends were playing, and I found people in college that were playing Yu-Gi-Oh! And I picked up all my old decks and revamped them. Decks I hadn't played in 3 years, but that is pretty much the story of my Yu-Gi-Oh! Career in a nutshell. But I wanted to talk about all my different decks. And some of you guys have asked me, what different decks I play, why do I play them, and stuff of that nature. But I pretty much wanted to talk about the different decks I play, and I wanted to showcase them for you so you guys can see them. And my question for you guys is, how many decks do you play in real life? Now, I know some of you guys have answered this question before and told me some of the different decks that you do play in real life. One of my fellow subscribers plays a deck, and you know who you are, that they call the deck, one of his decks he calls the Power from Within. And I think that's an awesome name, man, for that deck of yours. But some of you guys have already answered this question, but this is pretty much something that I want to ask you again, is how many decks do you really play in real life? Many people consider me kind of like a Bastion. If you know GX, Bastion had like a million different decks, and he would open up his jacket and be like, "Ha ha! I have a whole bunch of decks I can beat you with." I'm kind of like Bastion in that aspect, that I love deck building and I love building archetypes that I like. But without further ado, I'm going to show you a picture of all my different decks and talk about a little bit more about my different decks I play. So guys, after seeing that picture, your jaw has probably dropped, or you're scratching your head, or you're going, oh my gosh, how many decks does this guy really run? Is he that crazy? Well, Mama told me I was a little crazy, but I don't know about that. No, I'm just joking. But I play 21 decks in total. There have been decks throughout the years like Cyber Cistern, Heroes, different type of decks that I've played throughout the years that I have dismantled, like Rescue Cat, Dino Rabbit I played for a bit, but it got kind of boring for me in a way, sadly. After Rabbit got hit, I was just like, psh, go away. So there have been other decks that I have played throughout the years, but I no longer play because the ban list, like Counter Fairies. I used to play Counter Fairies back in the day. But most of these decks you see in that picture, from the top left to the bottom right, so going from left to right, are all in chronological order of decks I currently play and when I played them. Now there are decks like Dark Worlds and Six Samurais that I played before they got really popular. So before the legendary Six Samurais, I was playing Samurais. Before we had Grapha, I was playing just Gold and Silver. Back in the days when I didn't know the difference between discarding and getting their effects off and how to trigger their effects and yada yada yada. But I play a lot of different decks. Just like I said earlier, I've been in this game a long time, so I've built a lot of different decks. And these decks that you see in this picture are decks that have a special place in my heart, and I've pretty much kept them throughout my course of playing Yu-Gi-Oh! I mean, they're decks that have a special place in my heart. Some of them I have dismantled and then brought back up, but for the most part, these are decks that I play with casually or competitively. It just depends on my mood. Like Gravekeepers, sometimes I'll play a Gravekeepers in a tournament. When I take go to like regionals, I'll take a Harpy deck maybe. I've taken Gravekeepers sometimes before. I would highly suggest playing Gravekeepers in a format like this because it can shut down the graveyard. And number two, it stops Soul Charge. So Gravekeepers are a good option this format. Believe me, I've been finding that out. So that's a deck that, depending upon the format I play with, Harpies are a fun new competitive deck I play. Dolces before that were my main competitive deck. It just depends on my flavor of the day or the month. Maybe one day I'll have enough decks for each day of the the month, but I don't know if we're ever going to get that far. But there are many decks I play for many different reasons. Anytime I build a deck most of the time because I like the archetype or I like the deck's playing style. And sometimes I may put that deck to the side, but I still always love it. Now, you may ask me, how am I able to afford all these decks? Like I said earlier, you have to keep in mind, you accumulate a lot of cards after playing for 13 years. You accumulate a lot of decks and things like that from playing for so long. And you try to keep those decks as updated as much as possible, like Horse the Black Flame Dragon. I've been playing that thing since way back in the day. That burn deck with Lava Golem I've been playing since pretty much the beginning. I did play Heroes, but I no longer play those, like I said earlier. But these decks have a special place in my heart. And I'm probably never going to dismantle them because they're really cool. And I continuously add on to more decks and decks and decks. And one of the couple of ways I am able to build so many decks is, number one, I have connections. No, it's not the Mafia, even though we have a group around my area called the Nova Mafia, which is kind of like a gaming club. But I have connections. I usually build decks after the hype is died down or before they get popular. Or sometimes I just luck into the deck, like Six Samurais. I lucked into Six Samurais when I was coming out of high school because they were popular. But I already had a lot of the cards from before. And you kind of luck into things like Madolches when I built the deck originally when it came out, and then it got popular now, and everybody's playing Madolches apparently, so I had a lot of the cards left over. You understand the correlation. You walk right into the deck being like a tier 2 to being a tier 1 type deck. You walk into that a lot with in my course of playing Yu-Gi-Oh! That has happened to me many times. But I'm able to proxy cards in. Some cards I do proxy in, as many of my friends will tell you. I proxy in mostly and only some of my staple traps. Like I have maybe 8 sets of D-Prisons, 8 sets of Mirror Forces, but I'm not going to put them in all the decks, so I'll just put a little card in saying Mirror Force. And when I go to a tournament, I'll just switch them out quickly. But that's one way because some staple traps are expensive, like Mirror Forces, $4 a pop. That may not seem like a lot, but when you're adding up deck after deck after deck, it does tend to add up. So you can save up that money instead of buying staple traps, which you may have 5, 6, 7 of the same card, saving that up to build another deck. It adds up, believe me. And number 2, pretty much I only have one major extra deck. If you want to go back in that picture, it's very funny. There's a green box, and that is my extra deck. No, I do not use that extra deck when I'm playing in legal play, like tournaments and stuff like that. But when I'm playing casually, I yank this green box out, put it to the side of me and play. A running joke that my friends have with me is every time I pull my green box, that's my extra deck, they say, "Judge, Judge." They call Judge, Judge, and we're just playing casually, but they'll be like, "Judge, Judge, illegal extra deck, illegal extra deck." And I'm like, yeah, we're playing back in the day when the extra deck, was unlimited apparently. So, yeah, I love bringing that extra deck out, but I don't pay for like 3 big eyes. I only have 1 big eye, so I can play it in a multitude of different decks. But there's just little things here and there that you can save up on. And for the fact that I have a job, when you have a good job, you're able to pay just a little bit to build a deck here and there. This past year, I think I built like a total of 3, 4 decks. It was one of the most. It was one of those years where there was a lot of good, cool archetypes that I wanted to build. And once in a while, you just have a drought where there's no decks you really want to build. But that's how many decks I build, and it just depends upon what decks I want to play competitively or casually. There are some decks that are strictly casually, like Horus, my burn deck, Spirits, things of that nature. They're just decks I play for fun. But when I go into a competitive scene, it's just whatever I feel like playing, pretty much. But till next time, guys, Take care, have fun dueling, good luck dueling, and how many decks, guys, do you play in real life? But I look forward to seeing how many decks you guys really play. And until next time, guys, Seto Kaiba, I'm out of here, guys.